About the intersection of women in technology and politics. And we have two incredibly influential and dynamic women joining us. So first up, I'm going to introduce Julianne Crommett. So come on up, Julianne. I like to read the bio while you're sitting here. Julianne is the program manager of computer science, education, and media at the Google. Just kidding, at Google.
The Google.
The Google. She has worked to increase diversity in computer science and tech through media, and specifically Julianne and I share a gene in trying to create systemic change. So Julianne works with writers on TV shows and more in other media fields and presents and discusses the many faces of diversity and what that looks like really when it comes to computer science. She's super fancy and awesome. She's an innovative thinker and speaker, but I'm going to brag about you for just a minute. She currently serves on the board of the National Association of Latino Independent Producers and on several media-related advisory councils. And in September of this year, Julianne was honored with AdColor's prestigious Innovator Award for her work in shifting on-screen perceptions. I'm so happy that you're here with us today.
Thank you, Jess.
And I would love her to be joined at this time by Reshma Saujani. And you know her as the CEO of Girls Who Code. Reshma has galvanized industry leaders to close the gender gap in STEM education and to help empower girls to pursue careers in technology and engineering. She surged into the political scene as the first South Asian American woman in the country to run for Congress in 2010, and she is the former New York City Deputy Public Advocate. She's a new book, which I love the title, Women Who Don't Wait in Line. She's not talking about bathrooms. She's advocating for a new model of female leadership, all about embracing in risk and failure and promoting mentorship and sponsorship and boldly charting your own course personally and professionally. Among her many honors, she's been named the Wall Street Journal Magazine Innovator of the Year. So we've got two innovators closing our conversation tonight, so get ready. And she's also my Forbes sister. She's been named Forbes' Most Powerful Women Changing the World, and she is on the board of directors for She Should Run. Woo! Amazing. All right, ladies, P word, power. What does it mean to have power? Reshma. Okay. You can use your power to defer to Julianne.
Look at that. Look at this. Wow, we're already interactive. I love this. So when I was reading this question earlier, I love the musical Hamilton. For those who have not gotten to see it in New York, everybody should see it. It should be required viewing in theater for everybody. And there's a song that's called The Room Where It Happens, right? I want to be in the room where it happens. So to me, structural power is that you sit in the room where it happens, whatever the heck that means in whatever industry. And I would say personal power is knowing and understanding your story and feeling the confidence to tell it, and whatever that means. So owning one's own story and sitting in the room where it happens. That to me is power. Word.
Yeah, that's deep.
You know, we rolling deep in the last one.
Definitely. So, I mean, I think right now I am, living and breathing technology. Mm-hmm. And to me, the thing that wakes me up every day and just pisses me off is the lack of women in this field, given how much power that we have. Women literally own the internet. We use social media at a rate of 600% more than men. 85% of all consumer purchases is made by women. But if I were to pick up, Vanity Fair's Most Powerful Summit, 1 through 10 is a white guy running a tech company, where the majority consumer base is female. And so for me, every day I am thinking about how do I build an army of girls to take back power and to change the numbers. Because it's, in the 1980s, if you look at Steve Jobs' original Apple team, we almost had parity. 40% of computer science graduates were women. And today that number is less than 18%. A very wise woman said, it seems as though as an industry gets more powerful, as you make more money, we push women out.
Yep. And building on that, I just want to piggyback because you brought up the Steve Jobs example. And then you look at the image of a Jobs movie in present day, and the women aren't there.
Right.
They were in the Rolling Stone picture in 1984 in the magazine. They're not on the poster. And that's really what I think, because the narrative gets lost, and that's really the scare. That's the part that makes me mad.
The
every
narrative
morning.
gets changed.
That's right.
So power also can be, for me, the rewriting of that narrative.
Right.
And the reestablishing of it. We're 52% of the population. We give birth to 100% of the population.
Right.
Kathy McMorris Rogers gave birth 3 times while serving in Congress. That bio note will live in my brain forever. Right. So there is a chance for us to rewrite the narrative. So let's do that, because I know you both get asked to speak on panels a lot about this, and we talk a lot about the need for tech and women in tech and certainly in politics. But I'd love if you could, especially for those that aren't in the room with us tonight, to really speak specifically about why in these individual fields in tech and perhaps in politics, why it is so vital that we get women, especially in that field.
So I feel like, coding is a superpower. So Christian, I love you. I mean, I think that you're so incredible, and it's, for me, why I feel grateful to wake up every morning and that God has given me the opportunity to build this organization, because I get to spend my time with young women like you. And so I talked to your grandmother a little bit, and I learned that you wanted to be in fashion, that you like to draw, and that you want to be a journalist. And I think everybody in this room hopes you'll run for office one day. I certainly do. But I also hope that you learn how to code. And I think coding is so important it's because it's the language of today and tomorrow, right? And you don't have to choose. And so I think it's really educating girls that it's not about being one or the other. You can actually do all of it, and boys kind of get it. And, right now, I think it's like so much of the world's problems are being decided by this very homogeneous 1% of the population that are all men. And the work that we do at Girls Who Code is that we inspire or give girls the tools to build things. So one of my girls will say, I went to Nigeria last year and I saw that women are carrying water on their heads. How do I make that easier for them? Or I got bullied at school, so how do I build an app to help fight bullying? Or my daddy's dying. Cancer. How do I build an algorithm to help detect whether a cancer is benign or malignant? They're constantly thinking about their world and their community and how to make it better. And the reality is that men don't think about it in the same way that women do. And if we don't have women solving our problems of tomorrow, we as a nation, we're in trouble.
And just thinking, amen. And I think also we need to be raising a generation of politicians in this country who are technically literate. I think that's incredibly important. And I think really well taken.
Snaps going on.
I know. Gosh, we got to snap
We went from
here.
hooting and hollering to snapping.
It just got deep poetry.
I feel it, man.
I think we should throw down some spoken word, Rashma. And I think it's as serious as a heart attack, is what you're saying. I mean, the world is moving forward.
Yep.
Technology is proliferating continually at a faster and faster rate. We know that. Yet we need elected officials, both men and women, by the way, at this point, and women. Well, what an opportunity for women to have an edge, right? That's a really interesting conversation, right? To be able to speak eloquently and understand the legislative needs of our future, the IP needs of our future, the realities of everything from social society, civil society, right, into technical innovation and what that means and who legislates what and what happens there. These are all the questions that are starting and have been coming up for years and will only proliferate. And I know you know this stat really well. I mean, by 2020, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has told us that we will have 1 million jobs going unfilled in this country because we haven't trained a technical workforce to fill them. And what an amazing opportunity for women and for underrepresented folks in this country to step in. The jobs are right there.
That's right.
And we could change the numbers overnight.
You're blowing Christian's mind right now.
I know, right?
Well,
good.
Crazy. Yes.
Crazy.
And the reality is you make, if you're a software engineer, you make twice that of a private sector job. My family came here as refugees. And so when I was growing up, my daddy looked at me and said, you got 3 choices. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, because I had to help put food on the table, right? We're not having that conversation with young people. And for me, of the 10,000 girls that I've taught from 41 states, what's the most powerful is I have girls that are leaving homeless shelters going to Barry Diller's office at IAC, learning how to computer program. The next year, they're getting an internship at Salesforce. They're getting a full ride to University of Berkeley, and the entire family is lifted up into the middle class because we've done such a bad job educating our children that for the first time, everyone is starting at the same point, and the finish line is open to all of us.
That's right. So let's talk about the intersection between technology and politics. And where do you think that's heading in the future? And the future is now.
I hope it's heading towards disruption.
Talk a little bit more about that.
I mean, for me, it's, I ran for office twice. I love to lose elections. I lose them all the time. It's the best thing that happens to Girls Who Code because every time I lose, the organization gets bigger. But in all seriousness, in all seriousness, and I'm right. I mean, I'm slightly unelectable, right? Because politics is not a place where performance, unfortunately, matters. And I all due respect to all the women who came up here and talked, sometimes someone doesn't ask you to run. Sometimes they don't tap you for it. Sometimes you have to go get it. And I think especially for women, especially for communities of color, that's hard, right? And so I think that and oftentimes people just don't vote. And the people that are coming from communities and women, were oftentimes, not part of that 10% of people who are voting who may relate to you. And so I think technology has the opportunity to disrupt by getting more people to vote. Email voting, I can't believe we still don't do that, right? It's crazy. My campaigns, we were the first to use group text. We were the first to use Square. It's like we were always thinking about how technology can actually get more people involved and engaged. So I think that it is the one place, the one industry that has yet to be disrupted. And that's why she should run. That's why I'm the board. That's why I love Erin. I follow her to the ends of the earth.
Me too.
Because I truly believe that this organization, especially with this election, and our wonderful Hillary Clinton's running, I think we have an opportunity to figure out how we can disrupt technology and get more women elected.
Yeah, and thinking about it, so I'm Latina. I was born in Puerto Rico in San Juan, for any Puerto Ricans in the room. That's what I'm talking about. All right. And I'm Cuban American by my mother. So my family that's what I love, Cuban love in the room. Yeah, we don't do anything quietly. That's just how we roll. And, so I come from a family that also fled a country. So it's very interesting anyway. And I think thinking about, Latinos in this country as basically will become, a majority minority at some point, and hopefully just a majority at some point, there's a huge opportunity within the intersection of technology and politics to have a voice and to organize. And I think we're seeing that right now socially. I'm thinking about the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm thinking what we're seeing on the TV almost every day in terms of social organization. Technology has empowered that to happen. I had the privilege of leading a march in 2010 as another part of my life with a Cuban nonprofit called Raíces de Esperanza, Roots of Hope. And we organized a march in 3 cities, I believe, for the women in white, who are women who march every Sunday for the men in their life who are dissidents, who are in prison. And one had just died in a hunger strike. We organized that march in 6 days because of social media. And 5,000 people showed up at Echo Lake Park. Thank you. We had Andy Garcia and George Lopez. That helped. But what I will say is that not just Cubans showed up to that march. We had Mexican flags going. We had Colombian flags. We had all sorts of representation simply by the power of what technology provided to organize, and that was in 2010. So what we're seeing, I think, is that augmentation that has happened with the proliferation of technology, and what an amazing moment, I think, for our American society. And I do agree with you. I think it'll continue to be disruptive, not just in ways of process, but I think in ways of activism. And I think that's a huge opportunity, and also to incorporate that empowerment of use of technology and creation of technology in that. Yeah.
I really appreciate, Reshma, what you said about not everybody gets asked to run, and that oftentimes you have to take it and work your way into feeling that you can take that space. And I think one of the ways that I see technology disrupting our political conversation is in visibility alone, just in the pure visibility. And I would say even, I think less that we see that diversity and visibility in mainstream media, which I know we're working on, but a lot more in social media, and the ability to galvanize and aggregate thought leaders and future leaders and to hear and to see things is game changing.
That's right.
Where we sat in our room sort of isolated and thinking these thoughts and not knowing where to go. Now you have a chance to go to sheshouldrun.org and nominate somebody that you want to see in office, or to get information about, they have research on what appearance related bias does in political arenas for women. I mean, there's resources available now that I think completely disrupt not only our ignorance, but our connectivity to each other. So both of us, all of us actually, are into creating systemic change, working both outside and within the system to do it, right? Julianne, you've got seat at the table in Hollywood, and Reshma, seat at the table in Hollywood and Silicon Valley, both of you. So I want to talk about what it takes to be in the inside the room where it happens. Because that was Julianne's description of power in the beginning. And so I want to talk about what the challenges are and the opportunities for working within the industry to make change. So specifically, what have been the hardest challenges you faced? But also, let's end with the opportunity. Where have you seen the breakthrough happen in trying to make systemic change?
I think sometimes the hardest part of the equation is the system itself and navigating it and getting people to listen to you. It seems pretty cool when you read about in the news that we worked with, the Fosters on ABC Family, and Disney Junior Smiles from Tomorrowland, and Silicon Valley on HBO, and, YouTube across the board. And these are all stories of things that we've worked on at Google. But to get to that point, to your point about the messy journey, I had about a 6-year career in Hollywood before I ever worked at Google. And I worked my way up from being an assistant. And the Hollywood system is tough. Like, if I'm being completely honest. My husband actually says to me all the time, he goes, "I learned from you." And I said, "Really? How so?" He goes, "I saw you hustle. You went to a drinks every night of the week when you were an assistant that you paid for, because I didn't have a corporate card and I was getting an assistant salary. But I said, you know what? This is worthwhile for me to spend this money." And, I would have one drink, let's be clear, at a happy hour. All right. So we're talking $5 or something, but it was worth it every time to have those conversations, because all of those people that I had drinks with now are the people in the room where it happens. Mm-hmm. And so the reason that the initiative I lead, we've had such quick change in such a short amount of time, is because all of those people will take my phone call and trust and respect my opinion. So when I come in the room and I say, "Hey, this is what's going on in computer science. This is how real it is as a heart attack," I know I don't have to explain to you that I'm a diversity advocate, so let's figure it out. What cool stories can we tell? And that's the other part of power, right, is telling story. What cool stories could we tell together? And suddenly it's not like crazy, this woman who's crazy from Google who's coming to talk to me about story, but it's my friend Julianne, who I had drinks with when we were slogging phone calls, for ex-executive. And for me, that's, I think, the greatest challenge and greatest reward of what I've done in terms of the system itself, and seeing my friends succeed has been part of that journey. And I'd say the greatest win, I think, is that the conversation is changing, and that's due to a whole lot of people and a whole lot of places, into social media in and of itself, starting to change the image that's not in traditional media, but it is in social media. And that's been one of the most gratifying things to watch, and it's due to a whole lot of people publishing a whole lot of data and waking up an entire media industry to the exact percentages. And I want to say that, by the way, Gina Davis Institute, huge plug, they're an amazing organization, and the research they publish. The number that pops up over and over again is 17%, and that's across every single industry in terms of women's presence and leadership. Mm-hmm. And what's the percentage of women in background scenes in most Hollywood movies, as Gina Davis discovered? 17%. And so let us think about the cycle of influence. And I think that has been the greatest thing for me to watch, is to people start connecting those dots, that these things don't happen in isolation and that we're not industries in isolation. Right, yeah.
I mean, I think, Jess, what you're asking is, how did you get a seat at the table? So, for me, it's through stalking. Like, I am shameless about stalking.
Fair.
And I will stalk people over and over and over again. I mean, I stalk Sheryl Sandberg all the time. I'm like, you're really rich. Can I have all your money? Sorry, you're giving away your book. Can I have? So, and 5 out of 10 times she'll say no, but often 1 out of 2 times she'll say yes. And I think people know how dogged I am and shameless I am, that they're afraid to say no now. And I think that has helped me. But I think with the skill set that I've had to learn how to build, and I think as women, this is hard because there's all this, Jess, you're an expert on this, all this, research and data that we're so women, we're trying to be perfect all the time that we don't like rejection. And men, they'll walk down the street, they'll whistle at a woman, she'll tell them to piss off and they'll do it again. They don't care about getting rejected. So they'll ask all the time, and we're not comfortable doing that. And so I've had to really build that skill set, and I think running for office, even though I lost all the time, helped me build that skill set because I learned how to ask. And I think that that's how I've gotten myself into rooms is by stalking. I have built believers, people who truly believe in me, and when I ask them to do something, they'll often say yes. I think the challenge is for both of us. Julianne works at Google. I built a big brand called Girls Who Code, and we have 60 odd partners from Twitter to Facebook to Square to Google to all of them. Is that, what do you do when they don't act right?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? My biggest fear, right? I taught 10,000 girls. I'll teach 50,000 next year. What happens if they don't hire them? What happens if all of a sudden now it's a really hot thing, girls in tech, super, super hot here, and then all of a sudden, we're over it,
We're on to
right?
the next, right?
And I think that that's the thing that, when do you become shameless about the call out? And when does that happen, and how does that happen? And so that's something that I give a lot of thought to because, even though girls in tech are really hot and it's a big conversation, do people truly believe that this is something that they want that should change? Or are they simply scared about the narrative and brand cover?
Right.
And I think that that's why what Julianne does every day, which is going out there and making sure that you can't be what you cannot see, and that we have to change images of girls, and we have to literally incite an army of Christians to say, I want to learn how to code, and infiltrate and literally take over the industry and not ask to take it over is the way that it's going to change.
So we're over time. But I wanted to because I feel we could talk for a lot longer about this. So one of the ways that I wanted to tie this and bridge this back is that what I've heard throughout the evening tonight is an acknowledgement, especially from young Christian, about the messy and windy road, but also specifically about relationships and accountability is what I just heard you say right now. But relationships really being the currency of how we're going to operate and build perhaps a new system that we disrupt and then make that the new normal of doing business in that way. And so this night has been all about building that relationship. And we hope that you understand there's a community at She Should Run that is willing and able and ready to help support the next relationship that you want to have. And whether that's running for public office or stepping up your leadership game in school and running for student council, or in general becoming a supporter and standing by and advocating for more women in public office. As we said in the beginning, at the rate of which we're going, we will not achieve parity in a conceivable period of time. And it can be the same for all of the industries that we talked about tonight. So I think finding, especially for those at home and those who are here tonight, I hope you got that there are individual evolutionary and revolutionary things that we can do. We can go in and disrupt in big, powerful places that thought, and we can also disrupt our own thoughts that hold us back from taking the steps that we know that we want to take. And so I think collectively this is a great seed to be planted tonight and a great future to be working for. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.